Hey there, welcome to another episode of Behind the Mask. I'm your host, Sarah Joy, your friendly neighborhood interrogator turned clone, helping you get to know who the person is behind the screen name. Tonight, we're chatting with Enri. You may know them from Coruscant Nights as DJ, Mystique, and my, sorry everybody, absolute favorite character on there. Oh my God, don't tell Nikki, she'll kill me. So I'm super excited for this conversation tonight. Hello, Enri. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey y'all, so as it's been mentioned, my name's Enri. I use she, they pronouns. I'm actually a philosophy student up in California State, Long Beach. Um, this is actually my senior year, and then I'm gonna go for a graduate program after, but I'm just a giant nerd at that school filled with other giant nerds, and that's just been my life the last few years.
Oh my God, I love that so much. So when you're not being a giant nerd and a philosophy student of philosophy, which I think is amazing, and we're gonna get into a bunch of stuff about that because I just want to talk about that. Um, what else does the boring world? I'm trying to find a new word for it. Like it's not normal because there's no normal. What else does the boring world know you as?
The
An
boring world
awesome
knows me as
philosophy
a
student.
there's that. There's all the years of working in management and stuff like that I put behind to go be a philosophy student. And then there's not telling people that I actually write a lot and hide my stories through the internet and just share them amongst people. That's my free time is just story writing to story write.
Oh my God, I'm in love with you. Okay. So, where to even start? Okay. So, like, you left a job in management and were like, I'm going to go be a philosophy student. Like, number one, love that. What inspired that change?
It's actually kind of funny. What inspired that change is kind of what leads to me ended up here with you, which was I
Thanks.
was going to school for business, specifically management and marketing. I was in
Mhm.
undergrad. I was in a community college trying to get my transfer up, getting my connections, and I was about to cross the street at school, and a professor noticed a bag I was holding. If you've ever been on Think Geek back in the day, there was a bag of holding they had for a really long time.
Yes, I
See,
had
you
one.
know.
I
He
still
also
have it.
had the bag. Oh, mind you,
Nice.
an opposite story that got stolen out of my house a long time ago, but that's another tale for another time. But
Oh,
at
we're
this
going to find
point,
them and kill them next. Or get your bag back.
I ended up replacing it afterwards. They can keep
Okay.
it. But
Okay.
so, oh yeah. So I ended up talking to him about it because he had the same bag on him. We talked a bit. He mentioned that he was a philosophy professor. He taught logic and critical thinking. And lo and behold,
Mhm.
I needed some critical thinking units. Literally, that's actually what it's called. And I was like, well, I want to be as literal as possible when it comes to taking my classes. So I took his critical thinking class and it changed everything. I kind of realized I was full of myself. I realized that I never thought I was wrong. That because in business, it pumps you up that how good
Right.
we
Yeah.
are, how much money we can make. And I realized I hadn't been happy for a while. And I was taking
Hmm.
this class and I was realizing just how little about the world, how it works, what we do in it, what our responsibilities are. Or I wanted to learn more about that. So I dropped my old I ended up dropping that whole thing, became a philosophy
Hmm.
major, started talking to him more. He's actually one of my good friends now. Um, and one day I'm talking to him and he's mentioning, because we're both gigantic Star Wars nerds, if you couldn't tell, he tells me about a podcast he's listened to. Back then it was Dice for Brains. I started listening as well, and we started just listening to it, like it would come out weekly. We talk about it in class. I'd forget I have an essay due. I'd hand it to him, think it is terrible, get my good grade. But we just connected over this, which
Hmm.
eventually kept going forward. Eventually, I would meet people like Erica and Isabella on there. And
Hmm.
then one day people sharing around uh, casting calls for season 2 of Coruscant Nights, which would get me connected to Mark, which would get you to character DJ Mystique. And then, well, rest is all kind of crazy history leading up to today.
My God. Had you ever RPG'd before that?
A lot. I'm actually a
Okay.
giant RPG nerd.
Okay, cool. tell me, okay, Andrew was making fun of me earlier because he's like, I was like, I'm gonna ask you a question about something, and then we'll go on something else, but then I'll interrupt myself and ask you another question, and Andrew's like, all the time. So another question. So like, what got you into RPGing?
So it kind of like I've always known about RPG and stuff on the back of my mind because
Mhm.
my parents were from the 80s. They would talk about the Satanic Panic, but in how dumb it was, how crazy it was that people were freaking out
Mhm.
about this. So, but they would always talk about it like, oh, all this funny stuff the nerds used to do. And even though they were both kind of nerdy into their own things, my father being like
Mhm.
a Star Wars nerd, my mom being a fantasy and romance nerd, but they never wanted to admit it.
Oh.
So they raised me. It's in the back of my head. I become a child of the internet and I start role playing on different websites here, AIM chat rooms, pretending to be different anime
Mhm.
characters. Anyone in around like the early to late aughts remembers those chat rooms where
Oh yes.
it's like, hi, I'm Inuyasha. Who wants to be my Shishomaru? It's strange, but it starts there, and then I meet some
But I love
friends.
that.
Oh yeah, I meet
Mhm.
it, so I meet some friends who tell me about D&D. I remember it's like, oh, I want to join your table. That never goes anywhere. But I got so
Mhm.
tired of waiting for them to invite me, where I found my other friends bought the books and said, hey, do y'all want to play D&D? I can run it. I had just bought the books, never read it. I was like, I got some homework to do. And I ended up running my first campaign, which accidentally lasted like 4 years after. It was supposed to be a one shot. I wasn't expecting 4 years. It's a thing that happened.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Because I too have the story of I was trying to play since high school and it took me until, and I'm pretty sure I'm a little older than you. But it took me until like, oh my gosh, 7 years ago to find people to actually play with. But you're just like, you know what? The D&D thing is cool. Let's all play. Like, oh my gosh, I love that. So I'm really interested to know how your experience was initially being a DM. Like, instead of going in and being like, yeah, I'm going to learn how to be a player, you're like, I'm going to learn how to run this world. Tell
Uh,
me about that.
it was actually honestly kind of reflective of how I do my life most of the time, which is what's the most
Cool.
difficult thing I can do? I'm gonna do that. The jobs and management I've done in the past, I pretty much jumped into those positions with almost no training. My
Nice.
majors, I take the hardest classes because they're the open ones because no one wants to take them, and I'm like, well, they fit in my schedule and they're open, so I guess I'm taking an honors history course into Mexican history. Orale, let's go. And
Oh my God, that's awesome.
so DMing was just an extension of that. It was my friends, they're not math heavy. They weren't a lot of them writers. They're all musicians and cooks. None of them were
Uh-huh.
writers or storytellers. So I'm the theater nerd back in high school. So I was like, I'll
Yes.
take care of this. Don't worry. It worked out. I would say it worked out in the
I'm
end.
4 years. Like that's
Yeah.
actually the longest campaign I'm in right now. I think we've been running 3 years. So like that is impressive. That is very impressive.
Yeah, we started that 12 years ago. 8 years ago that happened. And it was actually kind of hilarious. I kind of right after this is when I got my health and life in orders stages. Every time I would finish a giant session, like section of D&D, I would change my life and make it better. At this point, I got sober. I finished another campaign with another group of friends. That was years like at the same time, and
Hmm.
then I ended up getting in shape. You know what? Right before I'm if anyone hasn't noticed, I'm actually a very open trans woman. If you've seen any of my profiles, shortly before transitioning, I'd finished another game, which led to I think every time I complete something, I get a new life realization. I just need to complete more
Yes.
games.
Right. I think this is beautiful. Every story reveals another thing about yourself that you can fully embrace and live. Oh my God, I love that so much. D&D changes lives, along with philosophy, which makes sense to me, like to pair the two together, especially. So like you're I'm recapping for myself here. Your philosophy professor got you into Dice for Brains which got us DJ Mystique and got you into philosophy as a major. I love that. Oh my gosh, y'all. Like everything about gaming, like it changes lives. I'm so blown away right now that I'm kind of stuck on that. So like what other, like you do role playing, and every time that you do like a game, your life changes in an epic way. We were discussing video games earlier, kind of how we roll with video games. So like tell me about your video game life and what kind of got you into video gaming.
Oh, that one goes back. So the thing that got me into video games was a Christmas gift. This is going to show just how open my family was. I think it must have been 1998, I think, or 97. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember. I had been given
Mm-hmm.
a Sega Genesis, and I was given 3 games with it. One of them was a 7-Up game for the soda company 7-Up, where you played as their little
Yes.
mascot. I didn't know what good games were at the time, and my family was like, they're not going to notice.
Classic. Classic.
Yeah. 2 more I was gifted with it. One of them, which by the way, I thought it was great because I was a small kid. I didn't know better. The second one was Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm still a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, though I haven't seen a
Me too.
second movie. But that's because
Oh my god, it's so good.
I wanted to do a watch party with friends, and I promised I wouldn't watch it until it was all of us together. And there, I'm held to that promise so far, but it's hard.
I
And
love
then
that.
the third game was Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis, the game that made them decide, hey, we should start rating all this. My dad and my mom looked at me, they're like, they'll like it. It's like fighting ninjas. They never were into like watching me play, so they never noticed what I was doing. I also had Grand Theft
You
Auto when I was
know,
like 12, so they're just okay with that.
yeah, well, I feel like Mortal Kombat, look at the things that we like give kids nowadays. We're like Fortnite, go kill your friends. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. Actually, no, on Killing Your Friends, that's pretty much what happened. They would come over and I would play with my friends, all the
Mhm.
fighting games. Because all my friends like had Super Nintendos and they were playing Super Mario Brothers and taking turns. I was the one like, hey, I got this fighting game. Want to beat each other up? It was a great time. Just having a bunch of kids screaming in a house, yelling at each other. That's was what I wanted video games to be from that point. So eventually it would go
Mhm.
into Halo, which would introduce me to the guy who would become my best friend. Uh, Yeah, me and him. Fun fact, when we first met, we didn't actually like each other. We actually had issues with each other
Uh-huh.
until he had like a Halo keychain on his backpack, and so did I. It's always with the backpack. And we started just talking about Halo because we're all mean, but then he was like, "Wait, you play Halo?" It's like, "I love Halo," and then we started talking. He invited me to some LAN parties. And after a while, we just started
LAN
playing so
parties.
much where we forgot why we had any issue and realized we were just dumb teenagers and decided, hey, why don't we focus on, playing video games, playing Halo, talking to each other. He was in that first D&D group when I started playing. It's him, his now wife, old friend that I lost contact with,
Mhm.
and one other person that I don't talk to anymore, but they went to college out of state and it was just one of those things.
All right, right.
But
Oh my god, that's awesome.
yeah, video games and gaming have been good to me.
Yeah, well, video games like bring your friends, like they gave you a best friend, and then like D&D gave you truth. That's what I'm going with. So, and then Star Wars podcasts. So like let's talk about Star Wars podcasts too, because you came to Dice for Brains, which I think a lot of folks have come to Coruscant Nights through Dice for Brains, which is awesome. I know Eric is on here. Shout out. And like then you were like, you know what I really want to do? I want to be on the Coruscant Nights podcast. What, like, because I know Mark is pretty generous about being like, hey, like whatever you want to do with your character, what do you want to play? How did DJ Mystique come to be? Like,
So DJ Mystique came from an idea that I actually I had just been ruminating around, which was, for one, I love tech stuff. As you can't tell by this rig, I build my own computers. I like
I
all this.
cannot tell. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, okay,
I
continue.
always My baby always needs to be in frame. But
Beautiful.
So I always thought of this idea. I was like, oh, I would love to do like a force sensitive person, but start them in the tech in like the tech route. Like they play music, they do hacking, but I didn't want to do the basic hacker because to me it's like that's fun, but I've watched The Matrix. I don't want to do that right now. I mean, I still ended up as a non-binary character, so that trans representation was always gonna be there. So I I ended up with the idea, which was, wait a minute, it's the force is felt, music is felt. What if I brought them together? And then I just started building. I started putting stuff together. I think I only chose Mystic Advisor as my class in that game because of Mystic. That was it. I saw that. I was like, I can make a pun out of that. And it's the reason I ended up choosing that one. It's like, I'm going to be Mystique, a Mystic Advisor. Mystique, your music advisor.
Oh my god,
And
I love that so much.
like most of my characters, it's based off of puns. I have another character, a trans character I play normally called Sin de Amor,
Uh-huh.
which which was a joke. It's like, oh, it's like Cindy Moore, but I wanted to make it Latino, so it's Sin de Amor, and it's most things in like creatively usually start with like
Uh-huh.
a name and an idea, and I just fire outwards from there,
Oh my
and then
god,
I
that's
end up with
amazing.
what you ended up hearing.
Oh my god, which was so good. So normally I don't talk to people about their Coruscant Night character. It's more about getting to know them. But I feel like this is a layer of yourself because there was so much. If y'all haven't heard the episodes, go DJ Mystique arc. Really good. I'm gonna give you spoilers. Give me about 5 minutes. So, the, there was this point like in the episode when you were talking about music and just how much music was influencing you, like you were feeling the force, and like I think Mark did a bunch of like custom mixes for that. So what, like when you started going down into the dark part of the force, like tell me about that. I'm dying. I'm like I put in the chat. I'm totally fangirling right now because I want to know what was going on in that moment and like what part of you as a person was there because it felt like deeply personal. So,
So the cool thing about music, the way I ended up like flavoring it in there was me
mhm.
myself. I'll be honest, I'm not musically gifted. I have tried to play the guitar. I'm trash. I've tried to play the piano. Can't learn it. Tried the drums. I tap very like I could do a bongo,
Hey, that's
and
impressive.
I
I
can
recommend the
see.
radio. That's what I play.
I played radio all the time,
Yeah.
but one thing I always enjoyed was I always loved like using music to kind of like set myself in life. I have a playlist before I go into work to kind of like get
Mhm.
myself ready. I have, of course, my workout playlist where I'm going to do stuff. If I'm going to be doing like anything kind of like creative, whether it's playing a game of D&D or being on here, I have a playlist for that. And it's always about kind of using music to kind of like get into the mood or the like just the brain space of stuff.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when we were in that seat and I was like, we're going down, I was like, for one, I always need to give Mark the appreciation he deserves. So I was like, I was getting into it. It's like, oh, this is that deep base of the basic instinct of all existence, which is power, fight, survive. But it was like that feeling of I didn't want to look at it as like, oh, this is dark, this is evil, this is just
Yeah.
simply this is dark, this is power. And that's started hitting that scene where it's just like, okay, how am I gonna get myself out of here and not just like going to dark side and going, let's do this.
You did that just so well, and it was so the character I play, she is uh spoiler alert everyone, she's dark side but doesn't believe that it's dark side, and I think it's so important to like just reflect really on what like the dark side is. It's that power, it's that survival, it's that fight, it's that drive versus being like, well, it's evil and bad. It's how you take and wield those things, which is what you did. Mark just dropped the beat down in the behind the mask chat too. So for those of you who haven't heard it, it's epic. I love that. Were you doing philosophy at that time? Were you studying philosophy at that time?
That at that point, it would have
Mhm.
been just as I was trying to get my transfer going. It would have been like I was getting my transfer ready. I was figuring out. I had finished my undergrad stuff, my junior college stuff. I was like, okay, I
Mhm.
got everything ready, and I was just prepping all that. So I was like hard in the mindset of philosophy at this point, and not
Mhm.
just like Western philosophy that a lot of people do, your Kants, your Descartes, all that, your modern European philosophy. But at the same time, I was actually studying Aztec philosophy. It's I say Aztec, but in reality, it's more of Nahuatl philosophy, which is the Mesoamerican people of the Great Mexican Basin that, well, at least the people who spoke Nahuatl, and they went from the coast of Jalisco, which is on the western edge of
Mm.
Mexico, all the way across to Veracruz and just before the Yucatan, which is where the Maya are. It was this group of indigenous people that in history you know as the Aztecs. There were the Mexica of Tenochtitlan, the Culhuacan Mexica, and
Mhm.
a lot of concepts I started using for my own games were picked up in there. The whole thought of, well, it's just dark. It's the other side of the coin. It's not good and evil. It's simply the fight to survive and the fight to do more than that. It's the sacred energy of becoming what we were meant to be versus the profane of this is it in its wildest, rawest form.
Mhm. Oh my God, I love that so much. Um, Apparently, a couple people in the chat are listening to this like while we talk to the beat. It's just perfect. We'll add it in post. I'm sure Andrew will be great with that. Thank you, Andrew. You're amazing. It's not going to be in post. It's fine. Oh my God. So good, right? So now you're on a new path. DJ Mystique is like the perfect kind of moment of transition into that, right? Like stepping into this wild journey into philosophy. Um, what do you think is one of the most defining things in your life that you've learned from your study of philosophy?
There is a story for this. Something that goes back
Ah,
to
yay!
that first professor. It was the first class. That's that critical thinking class. I was taking it with. Back then, he was just my boyfriend. Now he's my husband, and because he needed a class as well, and so we were taking it together. We were kind of like going through this class, and at first, I'll be real, I wasn't taking it seriously. I was like, "This cool professor let me in. I'm just gonna do, have fun with this class." But then he gave us an essay on a time, and he loved doing this, like near like about the middle point of a time you thought you were right, but turns out you were actually wrong. How'd you go about it? And I was just making jokes about it. I wasn't taking it too
Mhm.
seriously. And my husband laughed. And it's just because we were talking, and around the same time, I was realizing how I always pushed myself to be right in a toxic sense, where it's like I would change myself, I would try to change what I was saying, I would sometimes kind of just be mean about it in order to not be wrong. And I was kind of mean and
Mhm.
harsh about it. And then my now husband pointed it out to me, and that was just shortly before that essay. And I realized, oh, I'm just trying not to be wrong because I feel like there's something wrong with being wrong. When in reality, it's just you just didn't have the proper information. What's better is
Mm.
be wrong, know you're wrong, find the correct information, and change how you were going about it. And then this essay comes up, so he made the joke is, hey, why don't you write an essay about when you realized that you were wrong about being right? And it was, once again, it was supposed to be a joke. I'm like, that's hilarious. Like this time where I was wrong about being right, I'm gonna write a whole critical thinking piece about it. It was supposed to be like a 3, 4 introspection piece. That was an
Mhm.
8-page essay of me just leaning into why did I think this? Why did I feel this? Where was this coming from? The because I was still mask presenting at the time of like the toxic
Mhm.
masculinity and kind of like problems with myself, all the
Mhm.
way towards this idea of believing that being wrong was just inherently bad, but it's not. And anyone in any kind of academic field, you have to be wrong at points. You're gonna be wrong at points,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's how do we rectify that? How do we learn from that? How do we find the correct information in the proper way? In these classes, it's about dialogue with your other academics, going over the ideas, making new arguments, and from that point forward was that idea, which is I'm not trying to be right. I'm trying to just to find the truth in the best way possible, in a way that doesn't harm others like I was doing in the past. And from that point forward, that was it. It's find truth, find what's right, and just try to do that.
I love that. Oh my God, that's so cool. I know the chat is like, oh, this is so good. Yeah. So how has that then kind of do you find that that's changed your games when you're playing D&D? Like
Oh,
trying to do right, trying to find the truth?
yes, it definitely has in a
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of different ways, honestly.
Yes.
So, as a GM, it's more about it really focused me in on getting connected to my players. And I'm not trying to beat them, I'm trying to create a story with them. I want them to grow, I want them to find their truths of the characters and see their plot development and see what they're doing. And it became like this really integral part of all that gaming. But then at the same time, anytime I was a player, I would have fun with the idea of like, okay, me, the person's trying to find truth and answers in the mystery, but at the same time, what if I? It's actually a character I've played recently where it's like, what if I did the opposite? What if I'm a character that doesn't care for the truth? This concept of what if it was someone so against the truth that they themselves were the one and only arbiter of what's true and what's real, even though everyone around them knows they're crazy. And it's stuff like that where it's like not just playing
Uh-huh.
with what I want to do, what's right in life, but knowing how to turn that around and really kind of turn it on its head and have some fun with it.
My God, I love that. That's so fun. So how do you find the outlet through gaming influences your philosophy study?
Uh, Honestly, it lets me think about a lot of ideas that we got to think about in these classes and in these studies,
Hmm.
but try to put them in a place where it's like I can kind of think about them. So, I mean, one of the biggest questions, if you're thinking about within epistemology, going to existentialism, which is what makes us human, what makes us people, what's our identity, that's
Hmm.
a big chunk of it. I mean, if you've seen anything on philosophy online, you're always like, oh, the existentialist, which is simply someone trying to figure out what does it mean to be human a lot of
Hmm.
times. So I thought about it's like, all right, that's a great question. What if I can like distill that into characters? What does it mean to be this person or that person? And then
Hmm.
like kind of like how do they define themselves when you think about stuff like ontology, which is kind of knowledge about knowledge. It's how do we define terms. It's like how do we define an elf, what defines a dwarf, what defines things from gender, the sexuality, to literal race and things like D&D, what defines
Hmm.
good and evil, and all these questions. As a GM, I get to play with that all day, and I say force, but they have chosen to join me on this crazy path.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know that anyone is tied up, like not allowed to leave your game. I'm gonna assume that's not a thing, and if it is,
We're gonna
that's
assume
totally
yes.
consensual. Right. Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually, while you were talking, I started thinking it's really interesting because we like get so stuck in like our definitions of what an elf is and of what gender is, and we impose our own gender a lot of times, and our own understanding of gender on the characters that we're playing instead of like giving ourselves the opportunity to really explore that and explore like you were talking about exploring a different aspect of like what if I thought that I was the definition of truth, and taking that and just really leaning into that. I love that so much. And that's again, I think I've said this before, it's one of the things that I love about RPG and gaming is like the ability to explore things comfortably or in a safer setting. I'm curious, you played GMing for the first time. Um, how did you kind of evolve as a GM around creating a safe space for your players?
Um, that one was just talking to people. That was I started looking at finding people online who were
Hmm.
creating safe spaces, had safety tools. I'd ask them, what they were, how to use them. I'd go find workbooks because so much of creating a safe space, like like as best you can, is to go ask the questions and look for the answers and find all that to do it. So I would go, especially spaces like people who were gamers of color, queer gamers, queer spaces, that
Hmm.
they're some of the best ones to know how to create these safe spaces, because in reality they're the groups that I had to go to all the time to like find a safe space for myself or for my friends. So
Mhm.
those same people were also gamers, and I would ask them. That's the having your session 0. That's the having your X's and O's cards. That's conversing constantly on the hey, what do we feel comfortable with? What didn't we like? Is there a
Mhm.
conversation we should have? If anyone wants private conversations, we do that separately together. It's that open and honest communication alongside having the
Mhm.
proper tools and having everyone being aware of each other and not just themselves to put all that together in a big old package with a nice bow to try to make those spaces as safe as inviting as possible.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's awesome. Friends, there are lots of resources on how to do that. Please go out there and look them up. It's going to make a better game for everyone. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love that so much. So let's flip back to your stories. Something that you said in the beginning, just I want to like tease that out because it sounds so cool. You said you hide your stories all over the internet. Tell us about that.
Okay, so philosophy is my major. It's one of those things where I want to write academic pieces on
Mhm.
two places in particular, depending on what grad program I can get into, what professors I go. One is ethics and evaluations of,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to people of color, and another the other side is ontology of gender and sexuality, which is actually a friend of mine. That's what their whole like master's thesis is about. That's what they're going to be doing their doctoral thesis on.
That's
That's
awesome.
they're a good friend of mine, and it's like really like
Mhm.
inspired me. So in philosophy, I do kind of like a lot of serious stuff all the
Mhm.
time. And I need a way to like practice writing, but I don't want to write too serious things all the time because it could wear you down if you're not careful.
Oh,
So
I'm going to like the deep dark hole of nihilism, like everything is meaningless.
funny fun fact on nihilism is if you dig deep enough, you find your way back
Mhm.
out to the light of on the we like us as people give value to the things around us, and it's the us as people responsible for that value, for those ethical choices to
Oh.
give value to any kind of and meaning to things, which
Mhm.
is you got to keep digging. There's some of them are like you can't stop halfway, you got to bore through, but then
I like that.
you can kind of see why I need a break sometimes. So
Oh,
I write
absolutely.
I write stories a lot of times and I'll share them with people. I'll drop teases and chapters at random places anonymously and never tell anyone who I am because I want to test out what do people think about it, how do they
Mhm.
feel, and just really play. I took a creative writing class because I knew for a fact it's like those stories couldn't leave. No one like that was my professor wouldn't publish them against my will, and my classmates would
Mhm.
have to ask me. So I was testing a bunch of stories there, and this is kind of like I'll give an example to kind of stuff I do on the side, which is there was a story on the idea of trying to remember the movie. I won't remember the title. I'll remember it later when we're done
That's it.
recording this.
Just describe it and we'll get it.
So
Yeah.
the story is about imagine an MLM, but it wasn't trying to like rip you off of your money. And in reality, it's to make you think they're trying to rip you off, but in reality, they're switching your mind with that of the founder who is so narcissistic. She believes she could fix the world if everyone was her. And it's a story where about halfway in, I created this crazy perspective change. I ended up doing this thing where it's like, oh yeah, this isn't just a story about like, oh, don't get scammed by an MLM. It's oh, maybe that in reality they're trying to take over the world and you're not taking them seriously enough. It was this story. I had a lot of fun with it, and I never published it anywhere, even though people liked it. I'll probably have to publish it now that I've said it out loud here.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has to go in the behind the mask chat now because we all want to read this.
Okay, I'll post it later to like right when we're done with this. I'll post
Okay.
my office link to that one. But it was I always write stories like that. I've written about
Mhm.
witch who steals luck and uses that to try to make her own life better. But as she's stealing luck, she doesn't know how to control it. Just she steals too much, and it's nothing but chaos as she walks everywhere. And it's having to learn what is how much luck do I take? How much luck do I leave? What who can I give it to someone? It's like this mini story that I meant to grow, and I just like I never did. So now I have to do that too. But
Right, yeah, I was gonna say it's on the internet now. People know.
yeah, my stories were always that they would come up with either a class or a group of people. I'd write a story, give it to them, and kind of walk away because that's just how I do my life. I enjoy like meeting someone, giving them a story of whether it's a literal written one or taking them on an adventure, and then they don't talk to me for a couple of months, and they're like, "Yeah, I knew this lady, just crazy adventure. Where is she now? I don't know. Right down the
I
block
can
somewhere, honestly."
Enri, you're like the story fairy, like beautifully waltzing into people's life, dropping a story, and then disappearing. Oh, this
That's
is
also
so
how I play
fun.
video games. So
Oh, me too. Hard, same. Erica, I'm gonna call her out in the chat, says, I still think about that library. What is the library?
I oh, Maestra, that's the library. I always forget about a lot of the stuff I make, because I make so much stuff. But there was a library that was a dragon's hoard. It was I
Uh-huh.
had a character. I have another character I used to play that his teacher was a dragon who hoarded books. His parents were book merchants, and they were able to work out a deal of, you like, I'll teach your child, but you keep bringing me books I want. And she had this gigantic library. I think it was, I called it my ass's library, but I couldn't. I even had like a tagline and everything. But she
Mm,
had like every book you could think of, and had this magical mirror that let you make a copy of any book in the world, and it was her most prized possession. And of
mhm,
course, anytime I mention this, it also, it's, well, it can make a copy, or it can tell you exactly where the original copy of the book is, which I would, for other games, I would use it where she would send you to go pick up this book for her.
uh-huh.
And in other games, it was someone else who was using it as a trap to get to her. It was a lot of my stories were woven with that library. But
Oh,
my
I
SM's
love
library
that.
was always kind of that fun, which is, this is just a gigantic library that I based off of the Los Angeles Public Library. I walked in there, was like, this is amazing. I'm a design everything off of this. Like,
That is,
if
I've never been.
it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful. There's a museum in there. It's a whole
What?
thing. Oh yeah, there's an art museum in the library, as well as a bunch of places to eat. I think like 3 or 4 like levels of books of every kind, maps
Oh
of the city. It's
mhm.
it's magical, honestly. And it's in the middle of downtown LA though, so it's just like,
That's
I'm gonna go
okay.
to this beautiful thing and then walk outside going, it smells like traffic.
Yeah, all of LA graphic. Oh my God. I've been there. I spent a week in LA and hung out with my friend's parents, which was amazing. Me and another friend went to visit our friend's parents. And it was amazing. And LA is beautiful, and it took us an hour to go anywhere 5 miles away. So
That's about right. That's
yeah,
that's about right, honestly.
it was a lot. It was intense. It was intense. Also, now it's been proposed we're going to do a behind the mask field trip to the LA Public Library. Oh my gosh, yes, that would be. It
I'll
would just be
I'll
me
give
the
a
whole time
tour of
being
it.
like,
Oh, it's
yes,
beautiful. There's
we'll
things
do
in
it.
there you don't expect to find. I kid you not, there's another exhibit in there. It's called the Homies
Mhm,
exhibit, but it's based off this nonprofit that, what they do is find people who've come out of prison, help them
mhm,
get reintegrated into society, help them get jobs, help them get cleaned up, find places to live. It's they're called Homies, and that's their whole thing. And in the library, there's like this room dedicated to them, because they've donated a lot of money to the library, because a lot of people
mhm.
would use the library for internet access, having meetings and stuff like that to change their lives. So
Yep,
there's like this
yep.
whole room, and I remember walking in there, I cried. I'll be real. Like, the homies, the essays, they're like my familia. Like, a lot of my tios and my cousins are those people. So
Uh-huh.
it was moving to see like the library kind of like lifting the city up. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna cry, but I won't cry right now because this makeup took a moment
Oh
and I don't want
yeah,
to ruin it.
that's fine. That's fine. We'll hold it together. We'll change the topic. We'll change the topic. I'm like now daydreaming about the library. So, what is the weirdest place that you've dropped a story? I've got to know. Like you just dropped a story and walked away.
Thinking about this actually requires a second thought. You know what? Um, I'm trying to remember. I've left it on a comment on. I'm trying to remember the website. Oh, No, 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 that wasn't a story. That was just me commenting. You should see my stories. You know what? Honestly, probably the weirdest place is just meeting someone at a coffee shop, talking to them, and it's because it's LA. People always talk about like their screenwriting ideas or story ideas.
Oh,
That's just like
right,
what
yeah.
happens. And it
Hmm.
was, I think I was in downtown LA. So that keeps, I'm in Long Beach, but LA I hang out a lot in. Is either downtown LA or Hollywood? I met, I don't remember what the person's name was. I was just there. We started talking. They were talking about their screenplay, and I just started talking about some just random story I'd written based off of one of the games I had run. And
Hmm.
I kind of told them that story. I think I part of me wished they made a screenplay and got famous off of it. I'm like, oh, that person, but never did. Broke my
Oh,
heart.
it's too bad. Maybe it's in production right now and we'll see it on Netflix. Yes. Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Your stories are changing the world. We just don't know yet. I would like to know what has been your favorite gaming moment?
So, my favorite gaming moment was of me getting absolutely destroyed as a GM. It was the moment where I realized I loved my friends. So, this is
Okay,
back
okay.
in, we're going back way, the D&D 3.5. We're
Oh yes.
playing this, this was that 4-year campaign. In that campaign, it was this, we were getting near the end. They were dealing with like this legion of villains, as I called it.
Mm.
But it was a bunch. It was just I'd stolen a bunch of villains from different places and just like reformed them. And the one they were fighting was a samurai on top of a nightmare with a longbow, and I had the whole fight planned out. It was gonna chase them around. He was gonna go through like the forest and come out and shoot bows. It was gonna be this epic fight.
Hmm.
And my friends, being my friends, had an idea. They summoned a earth elemental, which back in 3.5 they were small. And I was like, oh, okay, you're gonna use this as cover or something. I was sorely mistaken. They spent their turn covering for each other as they put poison on the earth elementals inside like arm and stuff. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
wait a second. It's like, oh yeah, it's immune to poison. It's like, true, but what are you doing? And then they greased it up with the like I let them do the grease spell on a target. Like, I'm gonna let you. And then they did levitate, wind wall, and one person who was really strong hawked it at the samurai, rolled a nat 20, and I was like, okay, let me roll some saving throws for this guy to get this earth element off. He's, oh yeah, I gotta roll for the poison. Oh, I gotta roll for it getting beat down. And it was like, anytime I'd roll for the Ronin that was after them, I'd roll 1, 1, 1. I rolled for the nightmare, like maybe it'll come save him. Wisdom save throw 1. I was like, what is going on? And they're like unloading more, and it's just like this fight that I was like, this is gonna last all night. Ended in 10 minutes with me laughing that I'm like, you killed my epic, the strongest one you were gonna face. You killed him in 10 minutes, you jerks. I love them all. They were amazing.
Oh my
I
God, that's so good.
fun fact, that dude's sword I ended up having to use for another game later where
Hmm.
I gave it to one of the players going, well, he can't use it. I'm gonna let a player use it in another game. And that ended up changing. That sword ended up being used to kill a platinum dragon, and that's the game that I realized they were playing villains, and that was the
Uh-huh.
moment. So that moved on. It was that big gigantic moment that made me go, my players are super creative, and they're gonna beat me down, and I'm gonna enjoy every moment of it. And
Oh
that's
my
been
God,
my
I love
greatest
that.
moment of like getting just punched in the face, but it was fun, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. I love that. I will only ever GM one shots because that's my attention span, right? So I'd be like, I don't know what I said 4 years ago. It's a new thing. That I love how absolutely genius people become in this game. That is so fun. That's my favorite story of all time. And like credit to you as a GM, right? For being like, yeah, go ahead and do it. I'll let you do that. And then just taking it like on the chin for being like, it's fine. This amazing thing that I had for you, you made it more amazing and destroyed it. So You kicked in my Lego tower and it became something even more beautiful. Oh, I love that. What about as a player? So how much have you gotten to GM versus how much have you gotten to like play as a player?
So in the first 8 years or so of me being a GM, I didn't get to play a lot. I was like the forever GM, and I was kind of okay with it,
Mhm.
honestly. I was like, I can handle this. I kind of really loved it because they would let me write these stories and build these worlds for them to go into and just like knock over Lego towers and build little houses together. The amount of times these people have ended the world of all the different, multiple groups of different people, and it's like, how do you all end the world? Is it me? It's probably me. Just people that love
No,
coming to me.
no, we're chaos gremlins. That's what it
But
is.
yeah, and it's just like after that, I got to a point where I was like, my friends were starting to become interested in playing, and I convinced them like, hey, why don't y'all run something and I can play a little bit, kind of get like take a break, get that inspiration.
Mm,
And then recently I actually met a couple of friends online. Like during this whole like pandemic shutdown and stuff, I had
right.
done like a small like um what I call it, like charity stream of an actual play with some people. It's like, oh, okay, let's just
Mm,
we jumped together, we met, we did this real quick. It was small. I think we had like 5 viewers, but we had a lot of fun. And it was probably in there where I had the kind of like great moment because this moment would eventually lead to my now current D&D party where I'm a player and they're good friends of mine now, even though we're all different places of the world. Where I was playing a oh, so I was playing NPC that I turned into my player character because I have this reoccurring gag of you always have a funny choir of two dudes bickering for no reason. It's in Monty Python, it's in Star Wars. I put in my games, and it was these characters from a cyberpunk game turned into this fantasy game where it was Joker and Jester. There were two boyfriends raising Joker and Jester are raising Joker's daughter, and they're both just trying to get their lives together, but they always end up in really bad situations, like working for gangsters or mafiosos and stuff like that. So I played Jester getting out of that game and going like, oh, I'm gonna be a hero, essay. No, I'm gonna go out there, stop this guy. We're gonna save the world. And I played this for this little like thing, but I in my thing I had a disguise kit and I asked like instead of it being disguise kit, can we call it a makeup kit? Can I just be a gay makeup artist? Because I want to be the gay Latino makeup artist so bad. The the DM let me. And we had to save a little girl from a hag. And I didn't want to go in some woman's home and just murk her in her own room. I'm not that kind of person.
right? Right?
So
No.
going back to this MLM thing, it's always this. I was an Avon representative coming to give her a makeover. The
Oh
people
my
who were
God.
there were like, "Oh, we're here to like give you a makeover. We're gonna set you up. I'm going to make you beautiful." And we're doing it. We're convincing her. We're like a bunch of monks and rogues convincing her. And at one point, we do the, "Oh, I want to surprise your daughter with your new look. How about we have her wait outside for you? My friends will take care of her." She's like, "Oh yeah."
It'll
I'm
be,
I'm rolling 1920s on my charisma checks. I am
oh my God,
going through
yes.
this. And we're going. And the last thing I do as my friends are outside, I'm like, cool, let me open the window for air. I go back to her and I told the DM, okay, I'm going to tell her, I'm gonna just put a powder on your face. You're gonna let it set for a minute, and then I'm gonna show you in the mirror. So I just get a big old thing of white powder, hit her in the face, and jump out the window and run. And we did our mission. We saved the little girl. We were not paying to murk some poor hag in her stoop hut. We just left her in there with terrible makeup. I mean, the makeup looked good until I ruined it. But I was like, you know what? That's gonna be her learning her lesson. Don't steal little kids.
Right, right. You don't get little children. I'm sorry. I appreciate that you were not a complete and utter murder hobo either. And you recognize there's the sanctity of a woman's home.
But I can't
So
do it.
especially when she's over 40.
She may have been 140.
Well, there's that age. There's
It's
that
a
age. Oh
Donya.
my
I'm
God.
not gonna step on a Donya's toes. That's just you don't do that.
Right, right. Oh my God, it's so good. All right, I'm gonna jump into the chat. I could talk to you for a very, very long time. Definitely fangirling here because you are just a delightful human being.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. I know that the chat has questions, and I'm like
Maybe Mark,
totally
maybe.
ignoring. Say what?
Oh, Mark's like special 3 hour episode behind the mask. I'm like, I wouldn't say
Yeah,
no.
I am totally down. I am totally down, except I just ran out of toilet paper before this. And at some point, I have to go out and buy toilet paper before the grocery store closes. So good times. Too much. Yeah, Nightcast Creative really does attract the best people. Yeah. So we know that you came through to Nightcast Creative through Dice for Brains. I'm curious, did you listen to any of the episodes? And if so, what was the first episode that you listened to? Of course, on Nights.
It's funny. I'll be real. I went in blind. I talked to Mark, started getting stuff ready, and I was like, this is a really cool idea. And I just started listening. And I'm that person where it's just like, I'll give myself a break and then I'll just plow through a bunch of episodes. I'll go back. Like recently, I re-listened to the first few episodes in season 2 with Erica, where I was like, okay, let me just like, I remember this story. And I just, especially a few years back, I just re-listened. I was like, oh, that's right. I really like this one. And that's one of those things where it's just like, I'll join up a project. I mean, I live in LA. You get used to, you go join a project, no idea what it's about, if they had a history. You just, I'm signed on. What are we doing? And you just have fun with it and make friends, do cool stuff, be dorky, all the good stuff.
Oh my God, I love that. That's amazing. Yes, and that, and that's I think what brings a lot of us nerds together too is that like you were talking about, you're like, yeah, and then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be in management now, or I guess I'm going to run a D&D game, or like I guess I'm going to go do a philosophy degree. This is going to be great. Or like, Western or yeah, Mexican like advanced Mexican history.
It was honors history of Mexico post. No, it was the whole class. It was the honors history of Mexico. I was gonna do history of the Americas post the Spanish conquest, but I just didn't have the time, and I'm a little sad that I didn't get to do it because it's such an interesting class. And the professor that runs it, he has a
Mm,
doctorate in history, specifically in like Mexican
nice.
and Latin American history, and he is
Oh wow.
fascinating. And also, he never tell him I said this, but he's like a more charismatic and more likable George Lopez when he talks and acts.
We will never tell him. He will never see this, or if he does, we're not talking about you. Oh my God, yeah. Oh, I get super lost in thought, and I'm like, you're inspiring me so much. I wanted to add to, you said you started like community college and then like moved over. I just got my accounting degree through community college, and it just is like, I don't think people understand like the quality education, and the teachers that are there genuinely want to be there after these long careers usually, and like are so excited about their topics. Who other than the George Lopez, funnier George Lopez professor, and the professor who inspired you to change your entire life. Who else did you find inspiring there?
When it came to there, so there's one professor there that like I she's a professor. It was one of those like, despite our differences on politics and how we think, she was someone who challenged me like no tomorrow. It was my law professor.
Ooh,
And
ooh,
it was right before philosophy, and it was one of those things where it's just like she wouldn't let me BS. She wouldn't let me take it easy. She was a professor. It's like, I'm going to get you to write the law. If you want to pass this class, you need to break down this law, how it works and why it works every time
ooh.
properly. Don't try to BS me and roll with it. And every time I would throw it back. It's like, all right, here's this law. This is how I'm breaking down. This is how it can be used. This is, and it was an intro level class, and she was
Oh
challenging
my
me
gosh.
at a level I wasn't expecting, but it was, she wanted to get us prepared, and she especially just like saw me. It's like, you don't get to take it easy. It's like, well, you caught me. And I did learn a lot. Funny enough to where it's like a lot of it was like contract law and stuff like that, which is why when it
That's
comes to doing
difficult.
paperwork, my taxes, or
Mhm.
even just talking about contracts and hiring and stuff, I'm always ready to go because she gave me all of that intro to it. And it's like, I can actually talk about my contract. I can actually talk about what the extent of my hiring is, all that fun stuff. It's like, I know all this and I know my rights.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Y'all, like this is where the awesome education is. Like, I love, and then that's so important too because I feel like there are so many times that we go through our education and we're like half checked into it instead of like really trying to learn awesome like information that we need for life, skills that we need for life, understanding the systems that are around us and how we can use them for our benefit, and for the benefit of others. So, oh God, I love that. Okay, I'm dying to know, what is your next story? Where are you going next? Is it D&D? Is it going to be left on a bus stop like bench? What is your next story?
It's D&D, and there's two things that I'm building right now in for a game where it's
Okay.
one of them is the world and one of them is a concept. So there's
Mhm.
this world I've created. I'm working out with my friends, my husband. More on, I tell them, and they go, "That sounds cool," or they look at me like I'm crazy. Either
And
way,
then
I get
you're
the
like,
information
that
I need.
sounds good. Yeah, and then you're
But
like,
it
that's out.
so it's just like this world where the idea was there's these, and it's a bit based off of Mesoamerican how it worked. Like there's these gigantic megacities that are protected by either a god or great being or some mecha or a dark entity that keeps these cities safe. But outside these cities, it's hyper dangerous. Like any villages pop up, only get destroyed. And it's only a few select few people that can travel between these cities, either through the air or being amazing adventurers. And I thought, of what if you had a world so dangerous that you couldn't see the other cities across the world? But before mass transit and fast transit, we ran into what if we had mass and fast communication? And that's where came the idea. It's like, what if we connect all these cities just by the ability to communicate, to share videos, to share shows? And I came up with this idea. I was like, all right, instead of going across the world ourselves, this world's going to be focused on sending our stories across the world. And that was his first idea. And then my husband got me watching reality TV with him. And then I got a different idea, which is what if
Uh-huh.
in this world, the adventurers who go out to the world take I call it the videodrome. It's this little orb that follows around that records everything. It's like, what if these
Mm.
adventures went across the world, going through ruins, fighting monsters, but uploaded like these images, and then someone decided, hey, what if we make a show out of this and give it like a little storyline? And it's this idea of what if the game we're running was a reality TV show following this group of adventurers as they traveled from city to city and seeing what adventures they got into. And it just has I'm building off of that. It's kind of this idea
Mhm.
where I want players to go, hey, I want to talk to the camera for a second, and they'll get either if it's D&D, I'm probably gonna end up using D&D and honestly, they'll get like inspiration for doing that. Or if it's something like if I use SSG's Genesis system, it'll be like I'll give them a
Mhm.
free boost die they can use for anything, or give them back a story point, stuff like that. But it's just like you go into the camera and you let me question you and try to create drama. And it was the name I came up with was Hero House because it's this house on this what I call the mansion wagon going across the
Uh-huh.
land, and these heroes trying to go from city to city and learning about the lands that no one knows about. And I told all the people who would end up playing that one, like, if you play this one, lean into reality TV. This world, these people know that popularity is with drama, popularity is with getting in people's faces, popularity is being the hottest, where adventures are trapped thinking about this and
Right.
not the, oh yeah, we're supposed to go around the world and save people. And I want you to create
Great, but
those.
I've got to be
Yeah,
super cute while I do it.
yeah,
And like, yeah, I saw how you looked at me while I was punching that guy in the face.
all that. And then while we're getting into
Oh my
that,
gosh.
then throwing, oh, now you got to save the world, and it's up to you, the cast of Hero House season 3.
Oh my God.
And
Yes.
that's what I'm building right now. And it's like I love the idea of like I have reality TV in one hand and ancient Mesoamerican philosophy in the other. What if I make a sandwich?
Yes, yes. I like someone just posted the real world beats the Great Race plus D&D.
Not too far off.
I love that. I love that. Unfortunately, it's 10 o'clock. I'm very sad. Well, it's 10 o'clock my time, which means it's 9, 8, 7 o'clock your time. Yes. So we're going to wrap this up here on the YouTube stream. If you're hanging out on Discord or you want to hang out with us on Discord, we are on the Nightcast Creative channel. We have an awesome channel here with amazing people like Enri. Yay. So come join us, come have fun. We're gonna be popping over into the general chat to hang out. So join us is what I'm saying. We'll be back next month. Not the same bat time, same bat channel, but the first Monday at 10 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, and 7 p.m. Did I do that right? No. Why? We're not 10 p.m. It's 9 p.m., 8 p.m., 7 p.m., 6 p.m. Oh my gosh, we'll edit that in post. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Enri, thank you so much for joining me. This was an absolute delight. Thank you for letting me fangirl like a crazy person. So
Thank you for just letting me talk for an hour straight. I'm always okay with this.
Oh, great. It's wonderful for me because it's less work that I have to do. All right, friends, until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye, y'all.